Hello everyone, welcome to the Doom 3 walkthrough. I'm Machine Gun Joe, and we'll be playing Doom 3 on Veteran difficulty. With this, I don't think I'll be doing every single secret. I will try and get most of the PDAs and some of the secrets, but this Doom is not like the other Dooms where it gives you a percentage at the end of each level of your kills, your items, and your secrets. It doesn't do any of that. This is an entirely different Doom. If you have played the older Dooms in the 90s and then you play this one, you'll see a stark difference between the two. Like right off the bat, this is more, Doom 3 is more of a horror game than it is a first-person shooter, although it is that as well. But this game was originally released as the flashlight, as being a kind of like a weapon that you carry, so you can only carry one weapon at a time, and the flashlight originally was a weapon that you would carry, meaning that if you wanted to pull out your gun and shoot some enemies, you would have to switch to that particular weapon from your flashlight. There were so many complaints when this game first came out that they did a modification right away to allow you to pull out your flashlight while you have your weapon pulled at the same time, and the flashlight would only last for about, I would probably say like 7 Mississippi or maybe even 10 Mississippi. So that's how it was, and that's the changes that they meant. To me, it was a good move on their part. This is maybe, in my opinion, one of the better horror games you will ever play in your entire life. It's the fact that the atmosphere is so dark, you know. I mean, it's not the best graphics when you're looking at, say, these characters right now. You know, you can see that their head is not completely round, and it's sort of you know, got that geometric shape as if it was pixelated, but it's good enough, and you're not looking at them a whole lot. What you're looking is right in front of you, and those graphics absolutely stand the test of time. Let me change my settings. I'm one of those freaks that has to have the invert look enabled. I think I started out my life playing a lot of like plane simulators, so you know, to go up is down, to go down is up, and ever since then my first person shooter game like play has just been all messed up. So I've always done invert on the y-axis. I'm the only person who knows that I know does that. My friends think I'm totally weird, but anyway, back to this game. This is such a good game, and it's kind of one of those hidden gems, I think, because of the atmosphere, because it's this horror based game. You know, there are jump scares, but there are many jump scares in this game, so much it's, you know,
Welcome to Mars,
it's
Marine.
completely comes out as a trope as you play throughout the levels. It's like, oh, okay, now we're doing this again. But you know, it's you can't blame them for adding that. You would have to add that, but to me, that's not the scary part. The really scary part, and I do legitimately get scared in this game. Turn out the lights, play by yourself, and you know, like this game, as certain events happen, you do get freaked out, and that's what makes it, to me, a classic. But for me, what scares me is not the jump scares. It's when you're trying to, it's the room that you're in is like completely dark, much darker than you see right now. There's all these weird shadows with light just here and there, and you're hearing these sounds constantly, like babies crying or women screaming or like dying people moaning. All kinds of just weird sounds, and even some of the sounds are abstract. And while you're listening to this, you're trying to scan the room. Are there any enemies in this room? Like, that's just the the feeling that you immediately get when you get into a room, and you think the room is clear based off of what you can see, and you turn to your right like 90 degrees, and all of a sudden there's a zombie walking slowly towards you, walking so slowly, but all of a sudden they're right up on you, and then they do their really slow zombie swing at your face. To me, that's the scary shit. That is what makes this game an instant classic. I've always liked this game. This is maybe the most unpopular Doom game in the entire series. Like, people attribute Doom 3 to what Mad Max Thunderdome was. Okay? Sure, by itself, probably a good thing, but within the series, what were you thinking? And that's the general consensus of the public. But to me, this is a great one. This is a great one. So, another aspect that makes this game really good is, you know, you see the computer that the guy is on right now. As you play this game, you'll see computers all over the place, little workstations, and some of the computers, some of the time, you can go in there and actually do shit and like learn more about the game. And the PDAs, the personal data assistant, which is what you're looking at now, it's easy to skip over the emails and the user data and the video disks, but don't. You should if you want to get into the game, it's rare to find a game where it's actually worth looking into all this like side detail stuff. Reading the emails can pull you into the story a whole lot more, and it's hilarious some of the time. Like there's like a spam virus going on Mars apparently, and it's hilarious to read some of the emails that these workers get. And if you're an office drone like I am, like you can completely relate. If you're like laying brick all day, probably not, but still funny.
Is there some type of problem? I'm just trying to get my
all the NPCs are definitely worth talking to. They get a lot rarer almost immediately going into the game. And one of the other cool things about this game is when you do run into an actual human NPC in the game, after things get going, it's a rare find, and it gets you all excited. And then you also get pulled into these like escort type like missions. They're not missions, it's just like the normal gameplay, but it's something that you have to do, and it doesn't really matter if you complete it or not. It has, you know, minimal effectiveness on like your overall gameplay. It's not like one of those morality type games where every decision you make has a dramatic impact.
If I had a larger, more competent staff and bigger budget.
This guy's got a weird looking eye, not suspicious whatsoever. I'm sure he is a real good character, moral foundation throughout this game.
I won't have any difficulties doing that, will I?
Yeah, the story is actually interesting. You know, in the first, you know, Doom 1 and Doom 2, those games were scary, I think. You know, in comparison, I think that you could classify Doom as like a horror game. You know, there were times where it's like the sounds, and they had strobe lights in certain rooms and more sophisticated levels back then. Here we're going through, it's the first mission, which is really just running around from point to point, checking off the boxes. You don't get into anything. That's okay, because right after this segment, which is about 1.5 missions long, it is nothing but survival and trying to deal with everything that they throw at you. So anyway, definitely going through these emails. You'll see me in the game, you know, like I skim the emails nowadays because I've read them so many times. This is maybe my 7th like playthrough the entire thing in my life, and I bought it like, you know, maybe about a year after it came out on PC, and we're playing on the PS4 obviously. So let's just like let this play through, watch some of this for a moment.
This is Delta Science Management. We would like to request another security team here in Delta.
Took your sweet time, Marine? Now, here's the situation. Another member of the science team's gone missing. Since you're the ranking FNG, you get to find him. I want you to check out the old decommissioned comm facility.
I love how it's like your first 5 seconds on the job and your boss is like, another member of the science team has gone missing. Like, this isn't the first time, but it's happened again. And as ranking FNG, fucking new guy, you get to go take care of it. Can you imagine that? Like your first 5 seconds on the job and you don't have the ability to say, no, I'm not going to do that. What is happening here? Yeah. Moving to Mars sounds like a horrible idea. And I like science too. Like, I mean, you know, I watch Carl Sagan. I grew up with Carl Sagan, and Neil deGrasse Tyson does a fair imitation of Carl Sagan. You know, and Richard Dawkins, and, you know, Stephen Hawkins, and there's Lawrence Krauss. There's all kinds of guys that you can name that do science well in the public eye. But, you know, I like all that stuff, but I'm not going to move to Mars. It sounds like an insane idea. And even now, today, this is 2019, there is like a list that some credible organization has of people who have already signed up, like, I will be the first to go once you get that mission viable. And it just sounds like a death sentence. Like, I think by any scientific account, a human being, a normal human being, would have like maybe 4 to 6 months livable time on Mars. Like, if you were to, if they had a habitat for you, and depending on like how much time you actually spend outside and not in a fucking cave, if you spend a lot of time outside and you can deal with the radiation problem, you have about like maybe a little bit longer. But if you're outside all the time, you have like 4 to 6 months before you just have radiation poisoning, because there's like no magnetic sphere or field around the planet, because it's too small, its core isn't spinning, and you know, hot like ours is. We're a much bigger planet than Mars, but because it's not doing that, it doesn't have a magnetic sphere, and therefore like the protection. So it's just radiation poisoning everywhere on Mars. Anyway, let's continue on with the next mission here in the next video. I'm Machine Gun Joe.